Today we're going to cover the Magna Carta. In today's lesson, the topics that we're going to cover include what the Magna Carta was. We're also going to talk about the events that led up to the Magna Carta and why was the Magna Carta important. Let's begin today with what the Magna Carta is. The Magna Carta means Great Charter. It was one of the first types of documents of its kind. It was a series of written laws between the king at the time, King John, and his people. People would also be called subjects at the time. The Magna Carta limited the power of the king. It was written and set into law in 1215 AD. Let's talk about the events that led up to the Magna Carta document. The King of England at the time, as we have already stated, was King John. King John fails in many military campaigns. Because he failed in military campaigns, he lost a large amount of money and resources for his country. Because of this, he introduced high taxes without asking the barons. Now, who are the barons? The barons are members of the noble class, members of nobility, that are high-ranking or upper-middle class today. And you really had to run, during the Middle Ages, you had to run everything just about through the barons. The barons were one of those groups that had an ear for everything, or you had to listen to them. It was against the law to introduce high taxes without asking the barons. Because of all of these, that King John failed in military campaigns and that he introduced the high taxes without asking the barons, the Pope bans all church services in 1207 due to these reasons and multiple reasons. Now, as we are going to talk about in a few days, the Roman Catholic Church is almost, if not more important, than the role of the king. So when the Pope bans all church services, that is an important role in what happens with the Magna Carta. The Pope bans all church services in 1207. In 1214, King John again leads his army into northern France and fails again. So he fails in multiple military campaigns up here. Then he fails again. He is not very successful at these military campaigns. He should just lead the country and not worry about the military campaigns. But we couldn't tell him that. As a result, King John asked the barons for money. Because he introduced high taxes without asking the barons the first time, the barons say, They decline. So, what happens next? The Magna Carta is introduced in 1215, 1 year after King John goes to war again in northern France and fails, and then he asks the barons for money, and they say no. So, the Magna Carta is introduced in hopes that it would limit the power of King John. It said that all laws would be fair, that everyone will have access to courts. Money wouldn't matter. Money is no problem. Remember, everybody has access to the courts. Money is no problem. No imprisonment without a fair trial. What does that mean? That means that you cannot, let's say, you can't steal a Butterfinger from the grocery store and be imprisoned for it without a trial. Okay, so that basically means that they can't charge you with something without a trial first. They can, but you'll go through a trial later. The Magna Carta eventually led to the U.S. Constitution. It was 400, 500 years before it, but a lot of things in the Magna Carta will later be in the U.S. Constitution as well, which we'll learn about in 7th grade as well. to make sure that King John didn't break any of the Magna Carta rules. 25 barons, the noble class, the high middle class, enforced the Magna Carta. If the king broke one of these rules, or did not follow one of these rules, force could be used on King John. So, they set in strict rules that made King John follow the Magna Carta. If he didn't, force would be used. And it really set the framework for the U.S. Constitution. Many historians say still to this day that the Magna Carta was the framework to the U.S. Constitution. So what have we talked about today? We have talked about what the Magna Carta was. It means Great Charter. 1215 AD, it was to limit the power of King John. The events that led up to it, King John was trying to abuse his power, try to charge money to the people for his military campaigns, which were unsuccessful, and he wasn't asking the barons, which was against the law. So the barons set up the Magna Carta to make sure he didn't abuse his power anymore. Access to court, promised all laws would be fair, no imprisonment without a fair trial, leads to the U.S. Constitution, 25 barons enforced the Magna Carta. This is the Magna Carta lesson for today.